What's the best way to start producing music with professional results? Well, in my 15 years as a music producer, 11-ish of those as a professional, I've been asked this question so many times. Honestly, more times than I can count. And every single time I'm asked this question, I literally give the same exact answer. And I can count on one hand the amount of people who took it seriously and actually took this advice. But the people who took this advice really progressed a lot faster than the people who didn't, who I feel like were kind of spinning their wheels a lot longer before they really started to see results. So how do you make sure that you're more of column A, the people who progress faster, and less of column B, the people who spin their wheels? Well, let me paint a picture for you with a story. So imagine this. I've tasked you and all of your friends to a painting competition. Week 1 of the competition, you are gonna have to paint a picture just like Monet. So you spend the entire week practicing painting like Monet. On the last day of the week, you show us your Monet style painting. Week 2, we're going Michelangelo, right? So you get a whole week to practice just like him. Then week 3, we move on to someone like Basquiat, Pollock, whoever you want. We start to mix it up, right? And then at the end of the month, you get a paintbrush and a canvas, and you get to paint your own original painting and show us what you got. But there's a twist. One of your friends, we'll call him Gary, he got a whole different set of rules. All he has to do is show up, grab his canvas, grab his paint supplies, and then come back a month later with his finished painting. Well, who do you think is gonna have a better painting at the end of the month? We can get back to that later because you're probably wondering what this has to do with music production at all. Well, let me tie it in for you. So when you open your DAW for the very first time, you're looking at a total blank slate. You are looking at a session with no audio in it. You hit play, nothing's coming out. Now there are 2 ways that you can fill this blank slate, this blank canvas that you've been given. The first way is the Gary way, and that's gonna be you spend a month trying to put down your best work, your amazing song, the one you wrote that inspired you to get into recording in the first place. And the second way, well, that's the way that I suggest, and it's actually to start out by making a solid handful of remakes. Sit down and from scratch, remake some of your favorite songs. And when I make this suggestion, I usually get one of 2 answers. Number 1 is I don't want to be a cover artist. And number 2 is I have an album that I want to drop soon, so I don't want to waste time making covers. So let me tell you why I think starting with your own original songs as your first recordings is honestly a waste of time. And I already know some people in the comments are going to type away. They're going to say, well, how do you expect someone to learn and be original and be their own producer if they just make a bunch of covers? Don't worry, I'll tell you why I don't think that's actually a fair criticism a little bit later. So first things first, producing your own material first is kind of like buying something with the serial number 00001. Yeah, it's fresh, it's exciting, it's the first one, but you're gonna deal with all the kinks and all the bugs and all the errors that the person who made it put into it because they didn't know any better. When you produce your own material first, you are giving your song, the one that you love, production number 1 to a producer who has no experience. So all the mistakes that you're gonna make over the first few weeks of recording, all the techniques that you haven't learned yet, you are basically putting all of this into the song that you love and the song that you can't wait to show people. And your slow workflow as you figure out how things work is just gonna zap you of all your creative juice. So you're gonna end up spending 2 or 3 hours just trying to figure out how to get your microphone's audio into your computer. And then once you actually sit down and troubleshoot all that and figure it out, now you have to go sing and give your best vocal performance. It's just not gonna work out. But something even worse happens when you start out trying to produce your own songs first, and that is called analysis paralysis. It's a classic trap that we all fall into sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's what gets you stuck in that Gary mode. And speaking of Gary, let's check back in and see how Gary's doing. So while all the other competitors have spent the last few weeks practicing and learning the styles of all different painters, Gary had started out by trying to paint let's say a landscape, a nice pretty beach, right? And he wanted, sunset, some palm trees, some birds, but that's really complicated for a beginner. So maybe scale back, Gary actually, he's gonna paint a duck. So he paints the duck and realizes, okay, this is kind of boring. No one actually likes this duck. You know what? He's gonna paint something that he finds on Instagram. So he's gonna scroll and, oh, it's the middle of the night and he hasn't painted anything. They're doing a couple days and all he did was scroll Instagram and start over from scratch every single day. Every producer that starts off on their own music eventually realizes that they've been spending like an entire month just working on their very first piece, just like Gary. So when you're working on your own song, you are able to change the lyrics as much as you want. You can second guess the chord progressions. You can wonder if the bridge should be halftime or double time. Does it need a guitar solo? Does it not? But when you're working on a cover, you have something that you can hold up and you can look at and say, this is the goal. So you can move through this recording process, and anything that you don't know, well, you have a reference. How's the guitar supposed to sound? It's supposed to sound like this. Should the bridge be halftime or double time? Well, the bridge is already written and recorded by somebody else, so we're gonna do it that way. So if you choose the Gary method of learning how to produce, while you're learning your DAW, while you're learning how your interface works, how to record, how to comp vocals, all this stuff, you're also gonna be trying to craft this perfect first song, this thing that you're showing the world and representing yourself as an artist with. It's hard enough to learn how to do this stuff on its own in a vacuum, but when you're doing it as an artist who is producing for themselves, it just makes it 10 times harder. If an original song is a moving target, then doing a cover song, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So once you've made a handful of covers and you've really got a handle on how your software works, how to record, how to edit things properly, that is when I suggest that you move with confidence and you start recording your own original material. That way you can get all the super easy beginner mistakes out of the way, and once those are done, you can focus on just making great art. And about the critics from earlier, the ones saying that you need to develop your own style, well, I have one thing to say about that. When I first started learning guitar, the very first song that I learned was the Jurassic Park theme song. And every single guitar player I know kind of started with like Smoke on the Water or something like that, right? But eventually, as you learn to play other people's songs and you progress and you grow, you're gonna develop your own style. So me and Tim Henson, we probably both learned Smoke on the Water right away, but we've become two completely different people. You wouldn't hand someone who wants to learn guitar to write songs a guitar and then say, okay, here's a pen and a paper, learn all the names of the notes, and then write your first song. No, they're gonna start by learning other people's material, getting comfortable on the instrument, and then eventually once they've got that down, then they can start writing their own music. But even if that wasn't true, I highly doubt that you have anything to worry about, because most beginners who watch this, well, they might start by making a cover, but as soon as they learned that Command D means duplicate, they're gonna drop that cover and start working on their own originals anyway. So now you've made a handful of covers, you know how your DAW works, you know how to record, you're pretty much ready to go pro, right? Well, this video right here is about some lessons that I learned in my first year of being a professional producer that I wish someone had told me on day one.